Kitco News special coverage of the 31st Global Metals and Mining Conference is brought to you by Gold Terra.
Hello and welcome to Kitco News at the BMO Metals and Mining Conference with me, Paul Harris. Today I'm joined by Peter Marrone, Executive Chair of Yamana Gold. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, how are you?
I am very well. We've got a lot to talk about today, Peter. Let's start with 2021 Yamana Gold performance. You produced a million ounces, a record level. You ended on a real high, record quarter. You must be very pleased with that.
We are delighted with the performance across all of our mines. We're delighted with the production. We're delighted that our costs came in where they did. As you are aware, every ounce of gold was produced at $1,030 for the year. But in the fourth quarter alone, with that record production of just about 240,000 gold equivalent ounces, we produced every ounce of gold at about $960 per ounce. And that's quite impressive. But to me, Paul, the most impressive part is that's the headline. But I think we need to look below the headline. The most impressive part is our increase in proven and probable reserves above what we depleted. And more than that, it's that we didn't sacrifice our resources to do that. Our measured and indicated resources went up, and our inferred resources stayed flat to going up. As you are aware, proven and probable reserves is backward looking. This is what we have as of the end of a year. And we're normally touching into our measured and indicated and our inferred resources that upgrade to proven and probable reserves. That implies then that we have less proven and measured and indicated and inferred resources. But if you can increase that inventory, that means your future is secured, because what you did the year before that is historical can be prospective, because you now have that inventory of inferred and measured and indicated that can convert into proven and probable into the future.
Excellent. Well, that all deals with the sort of long-term sustainability of the business, and we're here at an investment conference, so investors really sort of care about that. But one thing we're seeing, the gold price has been sort of relatively strong for the past year, 2 years, but gold equities share prices have been sort of lagging out. Why do you think that is? And what will it take for gold equities to get up to where the gold price is?
That's a really good question, and I don't know that I have the definitive answer. I'm sure that people will be writing about this at some point into the future. But I would say that at the end of the day, gold is gold, and equities, while they are a proxy for gold, they're still equities. And so if the broader market is performing a certain way, then the gold equities will perform. I'd say that the broader market has probably been the greatest impediment to gold equities performing better, because everyone was invested in that broader market and no one was paying attention to this comparatively small industry. I don't know today what the market capitalization of our entire industry is, but I have to imagine it's in the range of $300 billion. Well, that's a fraction of the size of one of these behemoth technology companies. So it seems to me that it's a small industry. We have to attract the attention of the broader investment community, but because it's small, it takes a little bit of time to attract that attention.
Thank you, Peter. With a number of companies arguably trading below what their real value is it or should it be a fertile time for M&A activity? I mean, we've seen a few transactions last year. Should there be more coming down the pipeline?
So another really good question. And M&A is very broad. The spectrum of what is M&A is very broad. At the one end is buying something, a company that buys another company. At the other end of the spectrum, or somewhere in the spectrum, is a business combination of two companies, perhaps describing that as a merger of equals or something akin to that. And then at the furthest end of the spectrum is where one company buys another company outright, mostly a larger company that buys a smaller company. And I'd say that the grounds are fertile for combinations. I'm not convinced that they're fertile for acquisitions. And what I mean by that is single asset companies, opportunities such as that. I'd love to believe that they're there. But the reality is that while they may make a good investment opportunity, when you invest based on many things, including the optionality. Is gold price going higher? Might they make a discovery of more ounces, higher grade in the ground? When you buy something, you bought it for life, and you have to buy it on the basis of what it is at that time. And you have to buy it at its fair value, but you own it forever. And so you have to make sure that whatever value you can deliver on top of what you paid for it goes to your shareholders. And presently, we just don't see that there's a lot out there that would be interesting to us on the acquisition side. On the business combination side, I can see many things that would be very interesting.
Okay, well, let's dig into that a little bit more, Peter. The zeitgeist in the sector, a few years ago was zero premium mergers of equals, that kind of thing. But recent transactions, we've seen premiums starting to come into things again. So again, is this becoming, we're entering into a potentially very productive time for the sector and investors? And to what extent is this necessary to have that additional consolidation?
So decades ago, someone said to me that business combinations, transactions of that type are like living organisms. They're like individuals. I don't know if the analogy is a good one, but everything is unique. And so I think we have to look at it from the lens that we can't paint with the same brush. Every canvas has to be painted differently, perhaps if I can put it that way. And so it seems to me then that we can't just say that every transaction has to be done at zero premium. There will be transactions where that could make sense, but there will be other transactions where it doesn't make sense at all. And in the end, where I come down on this is that we have to pay fair value. If we're buying something, we have to pay fair value. If we're being bought, then someone has to pay fair value for us. That fair value is whatever two arm's length parties negotiate to be the case. And so it seems to me that it's the wrong thing to do to say that every transaction has to be done at zero premium, because there will be transactions, and often there are many transactions, where a premium must be paid because it will reflect the fair value of what you're buying.
Okay, Yamana Gold's done various transactions over the years, and we'll talk about some of those specifically in a moment, but your current market cap is about $5 billion. Do you see yourselves more as a potential acquirer or a potential acquiree at the moment?
Well, Paul, we have 1 million ounces of production coming from 5 mines. We have a 6th mine on the horizon with our Wasamac mine in northern Quebec. With those 6 mines, we get to a production platform of about 1.2 to 1.25 million ounces within this outlook period that we have of the next decade. So let's say within the next 5 to 10 years, we get to that point. More recently, we've indicated that we believe that our mines, those same 6 assets, can generate somewhere between 1.25 million and 1.5 million ounces. And then there's our Mara project. Mara is an asset with our 56%. The attributable copper production to us is 260 million pounds of copper. Well, that in gold terms is about 590 to 600,000 ounces of gold. So our existing portfolio supports not 1 million ounces, but between 1 million and 2 million ounces. And so the way that I look at it then is I'm inclined to look at business combinations from a friendly perspective. We can either go as a purchaser, we can go as a business combination where we merge with someone that is comparable to us, or we can get bought. We're open to all of the possibilities that deliver value for shareholders. But at the end of the day, what I hope our shareholders will recognize, and what a potential buyer or participant in the deal will understand, is that my personal view is that our share price today is not reflecting fair value on the basis of what I've just described as that portfolio.
Okay. Yamana has the profile of Yamana has changed considerably over the years, and you've done some really sort of standout deals. You bought half of Canadian Malatric. You've recently bought Wasamac. You did the deal for related to Mara that enables you to get the processing facilities there. You've divested assets. You haven't been afraid to let things go, including some significant assets like Chapada, which was a landmark asset in the early life of Yamana, and the dividend policy. So, and an all-in sustaining cost of $900 per ounce. Yamana's a very attractive company today.
I certainly think so. I certainly think as a shareholder, as a founder of this company, as an executive and board member in this company, that we should certainly be attracting more attention in the marketplace, and our share price should be higher than it is. If an industry participant would like to look at our company, we're very happy for that industry participant to look, but they should recognize what is its fair value. You mentioned several of those transactions. In 2014, we bought Canadian Malarkey. We paid a premium. I think it's fair for shareholders to ask the question, did you overpay because of the premium that you paid? We felt at the time that we paid fair value. It is now incumbent on us as a buyer to say, here's the value we can create on top of what we paid, which is that fair value. Let's look at what we've done. We've taken 47,000 tons of throughput per day to an excess of 56,000 tons of throughput. We've taken the production platform as a result to a higher production platform. We've decreased costs. We've generated impressive cash flows that are punch well above the pay grade, the weight class of that $1.5 billion that we paid for the 50% of Canadian Malartic. And now we have more than 15 million ounces. That's 15 million ounces in inventory in the ground, in the underground, that will support a mine plan of at least 545,000 ounces per year until somewhere into the 2040s and beyond.
Well, I think your recent releases, you're looking at a mine life to 2039 at between 500 and 600,000 ounces a year. And when we spoke recently, you said there's potential there. You think there's potential there for Canadian Malatric to produce 1 million ounces a year. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's an internal view that we have. Now, to be fair, we have not talked about how we get there other than in broad brush. We've not said what the CapEx is expected to be, although we have an internal view on what that CapEx is expected to be, and it would be substantially lower than what we're paying for the underground development presently. But the plant capacity is really the key here. The plant capacity is in excess of 56,000 tons per day. The underground that gets us that 500 to 600,000 ounces that you mentioned is only 20,000 tons per day. So we have all that excess plant capacity. So is it beyond the realm of possibilities as these ore bodies extend to the east and get larger? Is it beyond the realm of possibilities that within a horizon of, let's say, within the next 8 to 10 years, we might be looking at a second shaft that will allow us to increase that throughput above that 20,000 tons per day? And that's where we think the possibility is.
And Quebec is going to be a central element of Yamana going forward. In addition to Canadian Malatric, you've got the Wasamac mine that you bought last year. How's that? You recently announced that you've got the permitting, you're doing the permitting for the bulk sampling, which enable you to get underground and have a really, really good look around, as well as putting in some of that underground development. How is Wasamac advancing?
Very, very well. We're in the permitting process. We've already identified what we intend to do from a drilling perspective. We're carrying 1.9 million ounces, almost 2 million ounces in inventory as proven and probable reserves that supports a mine plan that is an average of just about 170,000 ounces per year for roughly 10, 11 years. But that was the base case because we're making new discoveries. We know that the main ore body extends at depth, and we've made a parallel discovery of a new shear zone. And as we continue to advance the exploration of that and then development, it does look to us as though the inventory of ounces will continue to increase. So with the same plant that is currently going to be in development, we should be able to get a production platform that is substantially higher than that 170,000 ounces per year. Let me explain that a little bit. In the first several years, the first 3 years, we're getting a production of 200,000 ounces per year. So what we're doing is we're saying, let's extend that for the full initially 10 years at 200,000 ounces per year rather than 170. And we think that we'll be able to get more than that. So our current plan for Wasamac is 200,000 ounces per year at below $850 all-in sustaining costs for at least 15 years. And we believe that the inventory that is there in proven and probable reserves, in resources, and these new exploration discoveries will get us there.
Okay, let's talk Argentina. Argentina is becoming, or has become, the go-to place for exploration for gold, copper. Yamana's been there for a number of years, and just today we saw another big transaction announced. BHP investing $100 million into the Filo mining. You've been there for a long period of time with you developed Cerro Moro. You've had other exploration projects there, and more recently you're putting together the Mara project. Why do you think Argentina is becoming so attractive today?
Boy, what a question. It's painful to know that you're right, but it's not showing itself. And so for years, as you are aware, I've been saying that Argentina is a better place for mining investment than people assume. And there's a lag often between what you see on the ground and what the general population worldwide is perceiving. I'm really happy to see that that's now beginning to manifest itself. Argentina is a big elephant country, and it's a country that had to come to grips with how does it want its economy to grow? How does it want to get itself out of this debt situation that it is in? And it now recognizes that because of that big elephant country in opportunities for mining, it should allow the exploitation of those opportunities. Argentina has always said, as a country and provinces in Argentina, that they want this to be done responsibly. We've been there since 2006. We've developed 2 mines. We have several projects, 1 mine already in production and several other projects, including our Mara project. And so we certainly have the ability to demonstrate that we can do things responsibly. And that's what I think the country is looking for. And that's what has been happening in the country. It has been demonstrating, at least in certain provinces, that it is supportive of mining. Now, if you look at a province like San Juan province, they've been supportive of mining for at least a couple of decades. And you see that in its GDP, in the wealth of its citizenry, in the growth that has occurred in the province. And there are other provinces that are now saying we should be able to capture some of that as well. And what I find very, very interesting today is that at a presidential level, there's support for mining. But even more interestingly, because mining is provincial in Argentina, there's a national regime, but there's also mining is regulated provincially. The four largest provinces for mining, Catamarca, San Juan, and Santa Cruz included, so where we operate and where we have operated, those provinces are saying we are forming an alignment that allows us to be able to promote in country the development of mining.
Well, one of the key criticisms of Argentina in general of people has been the taxation, things to do with exchange rate controls, repatriation taxes, things of that nature. Is the local government, the sort of provincial governments and the national governments, are they sort of streamlining that or providing greater clarity on that, perhaps tax stability agreements, things of that nature? How is the sort of the fiscal arrangements?
You know, I prefer not to be critical of a country. You made reference to one of the criticisms. I think every country has its own attendant issues. And I prefer to be sanguine when we look at all countries in which we do operate and could be operating. There are periods of peaks and valleys. And so there are periods where a country goes into a place where it has to do something different from a taxation point of view, from a fiscal point of view. Sometimes it's understandable why they have to do that, at least geopolitically, although even from a corporate perspective, we may not agree. What I think is the good news in Argentina today is that they recognize the errors of the past, that it does not encourage investment if there's ambiguity, if there's uncertainty, if they create uncertainty by having a fiscal regime that is one thing that changes to something different. And so it seems to me that given that recognition, the country is now saying, let's create some stability for mining. And we're going to say, these are the things that one has to do, the responsibility side of companies. And this is what we as governments will require by way of taxation and otherwise. So it's become considerably more stable. And more than more stable, it's also becoming very clear to us that there's strong support for the encouragement of mining by reducing taxes and royalties, at least during payback periods.
Okay, so your main a key development project you have in Argentina is the MARA project. What's the plan there? How is that advancing?
Well, MARA is going through a feasibility study this year. As you are aware, it is a comparatively simplified feasibility study because the plant's already built. That was the idea to the integration of the Alumbrera infrastructure with our acquiree that creates the combined MARA project, this new partnership that owns MARA. So the feasibility study this year, and we start the permitting process this year. But nothing is black and white. So when we say start the permitting process this year, that's the formal permitting process. We're already in consultation with governmental authorities to say these are the segments, these are the things we intend to introduce. And Catamarca province is a small province, and we don't want to overwhelm them with this very, very big project. And so we're incrementally saying these are the things that we're going to be introducing. How do you feel about that? And then going through dialogue.
Okay, let's sort of coming to the end of our conversation here today, Peter. Let's sum up or round up with, what are the sort of key goals, or what are the key things you want to achieve this year? Where do you want Yamana Gold to be at the end of the year?
So demonstrate again another year where we meet our production guidance, where we meet our cost guidance, likely coming in better on production, similar to what we did last year, and better on costs as well. I'd like to advance MARA to a point where we demonstrate its value. It's not reflected in our share price. So is that a strategic transaction that occurs, or do we advance it through the process of development? I'd like to also continue to demonstrate that we can increase proven and probable reserves and resources. And I think this is an excellent year. Perhaps the next 2 years or beyond will be excellent years. Because what we see is because of that inventory of resources, we can upgrade much of that resource to proven and probable this year at our 4 wholly owned mines. And this year and next year will be 2 very interesting years because the vast majority, perhaps all of the ounces that are in inventory as resources at our underground project, the Odyssey project in Malatric, will convert to proven and probable. Those are some of the things we'd like to see this year.
It sounds like there's going to be a lot of news out of Yamana this year. Peter Marrone, Executive Chair, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Kitco News special coverage of the 31st Global Metals and Mining Conference is brought to you by Gold Terra,